Hey guys, it's Trena from John's Furniture Repair, and we're in the shop today with this big old wardrobe. And it's pretty nasty. Let me show you some details. Okay, so from the top, what type of finish do you think this is? It's brown paint, and not only brown paint, it's brown paint over white paint. So that's extra fun. We can kind of see a little bit of it right there under some damage. So we've got a painted fir cabinet, softwood painted cabinet, and softwood being painted is a little more difficult to get cleaned up, but that's neither here nor there. We can still do that. We're doing a refinish on this whole thing, and we're going to be bringing out the natural fur of this piece and sticking pretty close to the color of fur. This piece does have some pretty nasty finish going on here, amongst other things that have happened to it over the years, and some damaged areas. Surprisingly, not very many damaged areas. Mostly we're just seeing really gnarly finish. Maybe a little bit of damage on the feet and the corners. And this is probably the largest area of damage right there. I think that it sustained a couple of breaks, maybe being slid on its side or something. Anyways, this is a customer piece, and they have a fondness in their heart for it, so we'll make it beautiful. We're going to be keeping these crystal knobs. One is broken, so I'm going to see if I have one that matches in my collection. So we won't be keeping these though. These were an addition that really don't add any character to anything. Inside we've got it unpainted, thank goodness. And we're just going to be cleaning it up and making a shelf and installing some pins for that shelf. This is an old table leaf that they had kicking around, and they thought, why not make this into a shelf? A couple of old nice table leaves here. Oak. So they're just using what they got, and they thought they'd bring it around, and that's fine with me. The drawer is unfinished as well inside, and we'll just give it a clean up. I think it needs a little bit of work in terms of operating, but we'll get that all apart. So let's get this over to the prep bench and see what we got going on. Rock and roll. Okay, let's see what I've got for glass handles, because it looks like I might have to cut off the stem on that one. And that's the good one. Some pretty interesting washers. There. I'm gonna have to look those up. Got some porcelain. Look how pretty that one is. There's some antique porcelain. Those are pretty cool. I think these are casters. A couple of brass knobs. I know I have some somewhere. Every restorer has junk drawers galore. And if you don't, you wish you did, because of situations such as this. I think they are in this tin. Okay, so I see one that is not the same. That one looks promising. And that one is a different size, but I might be able to steal this post. Looks like I have a few different sizes here. Okay, I've been wanting to do this since this thing got here. Let's pour some stripper on and hope the good luck continues. I think this first layer, which is shellac on top of latex, and then the white layer underneath is enamel. So this was painted probably in the 30s or 40s. Looks pink because of the color that's sitting on top. So we don't have any lead paint here, but still I consider all paint pretty nasty. So we'll just use the chemical stripper like I do on everything. So we're gonna let that sit for a bit and hopefully work through that second layer. It's probably gonna eat through that latex right away, which it always does. And then the second layer is usually, the enamel paints are a little bit more difficult to soften up. The shellac just kind of melts into a goopy mess. That's pretty soft. Okay, let's check this out. That's what you want to see. The good luck continues, my friends. Right down to the fur. So when you're stripping, you're trying to get stuff cleaned up. It's important to stay clean and keep your tools clean so you don't just redistribute the product. Like if you're taking paint off and you've got the first pass and you've got a bunch of paint all over your scraper like I do here, before you do your second pass, just go ahead and wipe that off, rinse it with some denatured alcohol or whatever, and then when you go to do your second pass, you're not smearing more paint on the piece that you just scraped. That will help. You want to keep your tools clean. Try to keep your table that you're putting your piece on clean. It can be really difficult, but it does help quite a bit if you're trying to clean something up, especially paint. And then I always have like a sacrifice piece of steel wool versus like a really clean one. And I'll kind of swipe off if I've got edges and profiles that I really can't scrape clean. And I'll just kind of keep it to a minimum. I don't scrub it like I would the clean stuff. Just kind of use it to scrape off the chunks. Because if you scrub when there's a lot of paint embedded in your steel wool, you're just going to rub it right into the wood. It's like a carpet stain. You want to barely touch it. You want to get it off of the wood without redistributing it everywhere. There we go. So we've got most of that paint off. Now we can come in with a final layer of stripper. It's okay if I get some stripper on the drawer and stuff. We'll clean that all up. And then I'll use my clean piece of steel wool to scrub this whole face. And I know that there's no paint on this, so I'm not going to be getting any stripper with paint embedded into the grain. I think that's a pretty nice looking piece of fur. This is going to be a rustic piece for sure. It's definitely the type of thing I see on the prairies quite a bit. It's kind of like homestead furniture. Good stuff. And then come in afterwards with the denatured alcohol or the methyl hydrate. And it gets any residue off from the stripper. I guess it's going to clean my floor too. And there we are, nice and clean. Looks good. So I'm just going to wipe off the floor for a second here. And I'll use my rag full of the methyl hydrate just to wipe off a little bit of a mess I made on the side here. Anything that's left after that, you can take off with the sanding in the second stage of the cleanup process, because it'll be very minimal. But really, there's, not very much of a mess that we created on this whole drawer. You don't need to gloop it on the sides or get it everywhere. Looks pretty good. So this can go over and dry and wait for the sanding stage now. And we'll basically do this to the whole thing. All the drawers and the sides and everywhere, and try to keep it nice and clean. And that helps just get the process done a little faster and a little cleaner. Okay, so it's the next day, and yesterday I got the top sanded, a few nail holes punched down and puttied. This morning I got this repair done here, and that's looking pretty good. I kind of like to work in planes. You've seen me do this a couple times, where I have the cabinet, on the face, and it's always easier to work on a face than on a vertical surface. So I kind of like to do whatever I can while it's sitting in one direction as I can. So I've just got the stripping done on the face, and I've got some putty work on some areas. This edge, I didn't do a whole lot of putty work because we're going to have to do a bit of repair there from that damage. That was a little bit more severe. But the legs I've got glued up. There's a lot of splintering happening because it doesn't have a glider, so we'll add those on. And anything else that was broken just got glued up and then puttied. So I'm gonna sand this face before turning it over to a side to do the stripping on the side. And I'm sure I'll get a little bit of mess on the face as well, but that's not my final sand, so that's okay. Just easier to kind of break it up that way. The customer did say last night that they would like that replaced and sturdied up as well. We're going to go with glass knobs on the drawer and the doors. So there'll be glass knobs throughout the piece. I got the doors stripped and the drawer sanded and puttied as well. The doors are here looking pretty good, cleaned up pretty good. So yeah, some nice fur doors. And the other thing I saw while I was working on these is the original catch system, which I think is on the bottom of this guy, or the other one probably. Oh, here it is. So we've got a original ball catch right here on the bottom of this door, and I believe this catch system that was on the bottom was the original. So it's got a ball catch and as well as a, whoops, that's a different project. One of these guys, which is also original. It's got a clasp like this on the bottom, and it catches these guys, and then the top has the ball catch, so it's missing the ball, but I have some pretty strong ball catches that I could use for this, which will be a lot nicer. But you can see up here, just one side had the ball catch on the top. So we'll replace that system. That's just fine. These doors are really light, actually. The fur is pretty light, so we don't need anything stronger than that. If we have that at the top with the clasp at the bottom, that should be perfect. So that's solved, that mystery solved. So I'm just going to sand the rest of this face frame, and then we'll turn it to a side and do some more goopy stripping. Okay, so all I'm doing here is using some longer screws, temporarily longer, to pull this very warped piece of plywood back in shape. No way to kind of clamp it, so I'm just drawing it in with some screws here, and then when this glue is dry, or actually before that even, I'm going to just pop some proper size screws in here, and then we can take these longer ones out because they're definitely poking through the other side. So it's just going to draw the plywood in. And help it to just seat on this board here. It's like that on the back as well as the front. The front I might be able to get a clamp around. I think I can, so I don't have to do that. But there's no way to kind of do that back here, so I'll have to use some screws, unfortunately. But now I can put in some proper size screws in a couple of different holes here, and then take these guys out. Okay, so I'm going to leave those longer ones in to dry with this glue because there seems like a lot of tension back there. I got to do the same thing to the front. I could just replace this board, but I have a sneaking suspicion it'd be kind of hard to get out of there. So, not a big deal. We can just pull that in. Looks like someone's added some brads at some point that just didn't hold on because it was warped, but I don't think that's going to do it. So I'll do the same thing in the front. I've got a couple of gliders that I installed up here. We're going to take off these felts as I go along and repair these legs. These back legs got the same situation going on, big chunk of wood missing, and that's because these are, legs are being dragged about and catches a flake of wood and that pops off. A problem I see a lot with big cabinets. So everything down here is broken, chips missing. So we'll get that all glued up, get this out of here, put on a proper glider foot so that we don't have to deal with this anymore. Okay, so I've got the last panel stripped here and under putty. So this is the last side I need to sand. Everything else has been sanded primarily. When I get it back on its feet, I'll do the final sand by hand. And I have been sanding inside of the cabinet as well. I took out the old rod here and the kind of chintzy ply that was holding it up. I don't know this is a really cool design, but it's definitely bowed, and maybe we'll put a thicker one in there with some different way to put it on, probably some hardware. Make it a little cleaner. I am going to sand just the shelf in there too, because that is a little grimy, but the inside's looking good, and everything else is almost there. Got the shelf underneath, or not the shelf, but just the bottom panel underneath the drawer looking pretty good, and got some screws back in there. So that's all nice and flat. Added corner blocks for more structure down here. Got a lot of repairs on the legs just because it's been dragged around a lot. This one I just have to finish up the repair. I actually added, behind this piece here, I actually added a piece of ply just to give it a little bit of structure. This whole tenon here is missing on the bottom, so really it was just a small little glue area here on this side, which it's not supposed to be glued on this side. It's supposed to have a tenon. So really there wasn't any surface area. So I just added a bit of a backer plate just to hold this area a little bit more secure. So I'll add some gliders after the sanding's done on that, and then we're ready to put this guy on his feet. So that's exciting. I've got the drawer in the booth, ready for the next stages. And the two drawers or doors over here are final sanded. Got those really nice and clean. So that's great. I'm gonna add the ball catch and make sure everything's working before we do the finishing. And then I also have to cut down these oak leaves. And so the finishing, we're going to be doing a little bit of a different process because this is fir and it's softwood. I'm not going to be staining this piece before we finish it. Might do a glaze depending on where we're at, but we're going to do probably a fully toned finish. So I'll show you how we mix our toner in a lacquer, and that will just help everything blend together. Fir is pretty loud in some areas, in other areas it's really not, and it can kind of look pretty terrible if you stain it. You probably have experience if you've stained softwoods before, that like the soft grain, which is, you know, the areas between these higher points, which are the harder grain, this area will go almost black. This will stay really white. And so you have these big discrepancies between the two, which creates a very busy, loud piece. And I don't like that look. The panels probably would be fine. They're a ply, and the wood's pretty quiet on those. And some of the other pieces would be fine too, like this piece here where you've just got a nice, clean, straight grain. Cut on a quarter instead of a half, like this one, it would be fine. But because we have all types of wood, like this front apron piece is very loud, mixed with these quiet pieces, just want to do something over the whole piece that's going to quiet it all up. So I talk about that a lot, quieting up wood or blending things or helping them work together. It's important for a professional finish to have a cohesive look, in my opinion. Sometimes the rustic wood look with, you know, a million different pieces of wood and tones is what you're looking for, but not often. Often it looks a little bit messy and unfinished. So unless it's specifically asked for, this is how I do my finishing. So we'll show you that when we get in the booth. But yeah, basically it's just going to be sanding and top coating and then color work. So a little bit of a different process this time around. So I'll finish sanding up this side and we'll head over. Okay, so there it is. I gave it 2 coats of lacquer last night. This morning I'm going to give it a sand down with 320, and then we're going to be going a little deeper with this color. I'm going to first of all go and hit all the little putty spots and the repairs that are sticking out with a bit of color. And then we're going to be doing a glaze with a stain over the whole thing to get a little bit more color without tinting. Just to get me started in the right direction. And it just helps with, when you're spraying color, it's difficult to get the color right into the cracks and things like that. So putting a glaze on first can help with toning things in a little bit closer, and then you can finish it off with the spray toning. So yeah, I'm gonna hit those light spots with a Color Fast, probably Mohawk toner with a brush, and then everything else will get the stain. I'm going to use San Miguel from Goudy to glaze over this whole cabinet, and that'll get us a lot closer to where we're headed. So let me get some colors rolling here, make it look a little different. Okay, so I'm actually going to glaze first before I do the touch-ups, because that might cut down on how many touch-ups I have to do. So I'm just going to start up top at the trim here. This is also going to add a little bit of color dimension to everything, because we'll have a little bit of hang up of the stain and all the recesses. Because I really did clean this thing up quite well. So it'll be nice to add a little bit of color back in. A little bit of age, because it was painted white underneath that brown color. We really did have to sand quite a bit. So there we go. That looks really good. I like where we're headed. It's just if it's going to be even or not. I'm going to have to keep my eye out for any of the fur being open grains still and sucking up too much of the color, because I don't want to go too deep on this piece. But that looks really good. I like where that's headed. And it does even out that repair, but I'll have to add a bit more. But that's okay. We're getting a little closer to everything blending in. So yeah, I think that's going to be perfect. So let's go ahead and add it onto the whole piece, and then that'll have to dry for the day. Okay, so it's the next morning. All of the glaze is dried and the touch-ups are all done. It's already looking a lot more put together. I don't like the blush on these doors. So I'm not sure if I'm gonna do something about that. If I do, I'll show you. I'm thinking about using a bleach toner just to lighten this area. A bleach tone is like a really diluted, lighter color, and I have a number of different shades. So I'd be looking for like a really orangey, yellow color like the surrounding to bleach tone these areas in. And that can be really tricky because after you bleach tone it in, you bring it kind of past where it needs to run, so it'd be really light, and then you tone everything down. So just don't like how that door looks. It actually doesn't look that bad unless you're really looking at it. In the grand scheme of the cabinet, it kind of blends in, but it's bothering me a little bit. So other things that maybe don't bother me as much is these two pieces are totally different colors, but fir is just like that. The side panels turned out pretty even, so those are good. And all of our repairs blended in nicely. So I might just try to do a little bit of that bleach tone work before we put the final 2 coats on this, and then that's it for this piece. I did make, the shelf is in there right now, and I did make up a sturdier hanger bar for them, so I gotta install that still. Just a little bit more beefy, a bigger rod and a bigger boards to hold it on. It kind of has to be this design because of the way the inside of the cabinet is. So that's fine, but we're just gonna make it a little bit beefier. And I'll show you the shelf a little bit later once I get this work done on here. So I might use a color from Mohawk called Blonde, which is a little bit too white, but it is the right yellow tone. So let me see what I can find here. Okay, so that just was looking horrendous. Wasn't able to blend that in very nicely. So what I've decided to do is just scrub off these dark areas where the panel seems to have blotched up. And then, because I have to go darker with this whole cabinet, we'll blend those in with toner instead of with the glaze, and that'll just be a little bit more even. So I'm just using a bit of alcohol to scrub out the color on this in between the hard points of the grain. Get that kind of dark, soaked up area out of there. And then this panel will just need a bit more toning than the other parts, which is kind of the idea of bleach toning, where you're bringing something a little bit lighter so you can evenly bring it down. But instead of adding to this panel, I'm going to take away the color first. It's surprising how much the fur soaks up the color, even though it had 2 coats of lacquer on it before we glazed this panel. That's how thirsty fur is. You have to be really careful with your softwoods when you're using any type of penetrating stain, because they want to do that quite easily. So it's a good idea to use wood conditioners or something just to help glide over the surface there. Okay, so that's got most of those areas all cleaned out. I'm gonna mix a toner with the stain, not this stain, but we're actually, yeah. I'm gonna mix a toner with this color and go over the whole cabinet, because we need to go a lot deeper. Not a lot deeper, just a little deeper on everything. And then we can give it its final coats. Okay, there it is, all finished up, looking really beautiful. It's warm, soft color. I like this color for this piece a lot better than what was on it before. It was just really hiding a lot of the features. It's a pretty plain piece, but it does have a few of the nice details added. A little bit more interesting than just flat square box. So I was able to get the doors to even out a bit and deepen up that color, hide a lot of the damage. And yeah, it looks pretty good. I'm happy with this. So these little glass knobs, I was able to find one in my stash of knobs and just gave them a nice clean. It's always important to clean inside where these rods go through, because that reflects a lot of dirt. So I just use a little Q-tip to clean those up. And they look kind of cute on here. Got 2 more on the drawer. That looks good. Got the drawer working a lot better than it did before. Still, everything inside is raw, so we're just gonna leave it that way. And we got the shelf installed here, and it's just sitting on some cleats, and they can take it out in 2 pieces. I didn't glue the table leaves together, so it's easier for them to take in and out. And then I've got the rod installed here, a little beefier, same idea, but working much better now. So I did do a little bit of sanding and cleanup in here just to get some grime and some years off. I only had one of these that came with the cabinet, and guess where I found this one? I stole it from one of my cabinets in the garage because you can't get these old style spring clips anymore, and I like these a lot better. I think they look a lot nicer. So found one of those. They had these still though, and those are the heavier brass ones. They look a lot nicer than the chintzy nickel plated ones you can get these days. So I did leave also the Canada meat ration coin right here. That was on there to begin with on both sides. So left that as part of the cabinet, but I replaced the hardware so the bolts are a little bit longer. Then we got our ball catch up there. So this one just has the spring clip, and then this one has the ball catch and the spring clip. It's kind of sitting on an uneven part of the concrete here, but yeah, looks good. Lots of repairs on the base. Everything's sturdy, and it's ready to get back to business. So thanks so much for joining me on this one. I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to support this channel, you can buy me a coffee. The link is in the description below this video. And as always, thanks so much for being here with me and sticking it through another restoration. We'll see you on the next one. Cheers.